have your attention, please? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're back once again to start our program, Unique Lives and Stories. Some of you have been listening to it on previous times. At the same time, you can always look and watch Pitch because we practically go on almost every single day. So if you miss one, you can catch it on there. So some of the stories that we have here are so unbelievable that at times when I listen to the people that I interview, I can't believe that they led that kind of a life. And we have for you a group of people down here who are willing to tell their stories. And believe me, as Al Jolson used to say, you ain't seen or heard anything yet, because some of them are just unbelievable. Now what we do is we need some cooperation from some of you people in regards to being able to tell us if you know somebody with an interesting background or somebody that has a good story, not fabricated, but somebody that really has a true story to tell. We'd be more than interested to get their name. And if we can't do that, we will do the rest and follow up. So to continue on, incidentally, our next program will be November 9th. Thanksgiving, we're not going to have any. So bear that in mind, but you'll see the posters and everything else. And now we'd like to start with our program and introduce to you Judy Heller, as I call her, the nurse extraordinaire. Judy Heller.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Because I adore the two people very involved in running this program, I consented to speak to you. I think all of us really don't think we're unique or we have interesting stories until someone says to you, but you did this, 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 and this. So this is what I've done. First of all, what's unusual is that I went to 9 different schools. And you say, how did she go to 9 different schools? I was a product of divorced parents, which was very unusual from a middle-class Jewish family. So I went from pillar to post. I started out in Brooklyn, and my first public school was on Eastern Parkway in Schenectady, those of you who are from Brooklyn, PS 95. And then I had to live with my aunt for 6 months, so I went to PS 92 in Flatbush. Then my father decided he wanted me, so I went to Forest Hills, and I went to Forest Hills 101 in the Gardens. And then high school started. Well, then I went back to my mother, and I went to Erasmus for a while. And then after Erasmus, I went back with my father to Forest Hills High, and then my aunt wanted me in the Bronx, and I went to Christopher Columbus High School. Then the war broke out, and my father was $1 a year man. Those of you who remember, because some of you are too young to know that during the war, men who were either too young or too old couldn't serve, but they could volunteer to work for the government in the capacity the government wanted them. My father was a civil engineer, and at that time there were openings for him to work in Virginia at a secret army base called Bent Hills out of Warrington, about an hour outside of Washington, D.C., which was a secret decoding station for the government. And he was always a frustrated farmer. Can you imagine a nice Jewish boy born in this country, grows up in the Bronx? He was too young when he graduated high school to become a doctor. He couldn't become a lawyer. He was too young. So what was available in those years? You could become an engineer or an architect, because you didn't have to worry about being a certain age to take a bar or anything. So he always wanted to be a farmer. So here the war turns out, and he has a wonderful opportunity to serve his government by working as a post engineer, and he can now buy a farm. So I had the experience of living on a farm in Goyersville. I was the only Jew in the whole high school. Some of my classmates really looked for my horns. When I used to wear my Jewish star, one of my friends wanted to know, could she buy one? It was such a pretty locket. I said to her, haven't you been to Washington? You're only an hour's away. And she said, Of course. I said, didn't you ever see buildings with the stars in them? She says, yeah. I said, well, that's the house of worship that I went to. Living on a farm was very interesting. I learned how to milk a cow. I had how to collect eggs from the chickens, which is a very hard job. They're not very cooperative. They don't want you to go underneath and take them out. I also learned how to, I really wasn't successful at this. I love guinea hen. And that, for those of you who don't know what a guinea hen is, it's really an expensive dish if you go to a restaurant. But they're domesticated, really wild birds. Very tasty, similar between a duck and a turkey, very big-breasted. I guess maybe that's why I like them. My father said I could have anyone I could to eat if I would kill it. Now, on a farm, you had a stump, and you put the chicken head on the stump, and you took the hatchet, and that's how you killed the chicken. We didn't have a shortcut down there. So I got this guinea hen, and I was so proud. I put the poor little thing on here. This is the stump, and I'm like sawing it because I didn't have the heart to really do it. I never did it. I think probably my love for nursing and anatomy was part of my park experience because I watched them slaughter cows and pigs, and I used to be fascinated. What's this and what's that? Oh, that's the liver, that's the pancreas, because they use every part of it. They really, truly do. So my experiences down on the farm was very good, and I enjoyed it. And being the Jew and the Northerner, who wasn't used to segregation, I'll never forget when I got off the train in Manassas, there was in those years you knew drugstores, and I went to the drugstore and I said, can I have a glass of water? And this southerner says to me, you're from the north. I said, how do you know I'm from the north? All I asked for was a glass of water. We really do speak differently. And the reverse was when I came up north, everybody was saying, especially the girls, speak with a southern accent. I said, I don't have a southern accent since I was really raised in Brooklyn. All right, the war broke out. I told you I was living on the farm. My brother was stationed in, at that time, it was the China, Burma, India theater of war, and later we realized he was in China when he sent us a picture back of somebody in the background looked Chinese. And my cousins were all overseas, and I was graduating high school, and at that time, a nice Jewish girl either went to secretarial school or went to college to be a teacher. That was it, unless you were going to work in business. And my father gave me that option. He said, you want to go to college, you go to a school in Virginia, and you'll be a teacher. So I said to myself, and I go home to visit my mother. And I see this wonderful poster that says, be a cadet nurse. And it shows a nice young lady in a uniform, and I didn't know what a cadet nurse was. I didn't even know there was such a creature. When I got home, I had the opportunity to go to Washington, and I made inquiries, and I found out that during World War II, after, say, a year or two of the war, they realized there was a nursing shortage. So the Bolton Act was passed, an act of Congress that said that any person who met the requirements and was accepted by a school of nursing would have their tuition, all their expenses paid by the United States government as long as they signed a paper saying that they would serve in essential nursing for the duration of the war. We were provided with a uniform, and we also were given a stipend. When you first entered school, you got a $15, which was a lot of money, a month stipend, and then when you were a higher student in the school, you got a $30 a month stipend. You had to take a battery of tests in Washington, or any big city, of course, to see if you had the aptitude to become a nurse. Now, I did not play nurse and doctor when I was little. I really wasn't concerned with that. People used to always say to me, oh, didn't you always want to be a nurse? And I said, no. I had other ambitions. I always liked people, and I always liked to teach, and I love to talk. So I didn't know what I wanted to be. I love science, though. I really was a good science. Oh, I wanted to share with you, which I wanted to tell you how funny schools were. I learned Pittman because one school taught Pittman. I learned Greg because another school taught Greg. I took every commercial subject that was taught in the New York City school system, but I didn't want a commercial diploma. So then you could get either what they called a general diploma or an academic diploma. So I loved going to school, so I took every subject I could, and I ended up graduating with an academic diploma, which helped me then get into nursing school, especially since I was heavy on the sciences. My forte was not language. I just took the basic requirement for an academic diploma in that time was, I think, 2 years is all you had to take and get the region. I think I was the only one that took Spanish and passed the region, so I had to pass the course, because I was the worst Spanish student that you could ever have. I read a book and I see O-L-E and I thought it was Oldie. Back in my days, instead of saying Ole. All right, so I see the sign, I take the test, and I find out that I do have an aptitude for science and for nursing. Then I say to myself, where am I going to apply? What do I know for nursing schools? Jewish girls did not become nurses. We didn't know from nursing schools. Well, after all, I came from Brooklyn. There was a big hospital there called Brooklyn Jewish. Gee, I'll try there, see if I can get in there. There were 400 applicants. They only took 29. I was one of the fortunate ones. I had to be interviewed there, and I never forgot the interview because the director of nursing said to me, "You went to so many schools? I can't understand how you don't have problems." I looked at her and I felt she had the problem. What did she want from me? My scholastic record was adequate, and I had passed the aptitude test. Now, the war in Europe had stopped, but the duration was not over. The duration of after a war has to be passed by an act of Congress. Then I was worried. I wanted the war to be over in the other field of war, and it was. I was supposed to start school in September. The war was over in August. I remember I was on the farm canning tomatoes. And I said, oh, there goes my career. No one's going to pay for my education now. What's going to happen? But again, the duration had not been declared that the war was over by Congress, so that they honored their commitment. I was the last class of cadet nurses that the government paid for. We didn't get the full uniform because they ran out of them. So they just paid our tuition and gave us our stipend, and we still had an obligation until the duration to serve if we wanted to. Now, I went to a very unusual nursing school because, other being a Brooklyn Jewish nursing school, they had some things that were different. We had a social director. We were taught how to pour tea. We took horseback riding lessons in Prospect Park. We also had a swimming pool in the facility because one of the benefactors of the hospital felt that since we were so close to the water, to be a good nurse, we certainly should know how to swim. You couldn't go, your first 6 months was called probation. You couldn't go beyond probation unless you passed the Red Cross beginner's test. I had no trouble. I loved to swim, and I always went to the beach. But I remember that one of my classmates was terrified of the water. Now, to pass that test, you had to jump into the pool. And we pushed her when the teacher wasn't looking, because we knew we could rescue her, and we wanted her to pass. Nursing, I adored it. I really and truly enjoyed the vocational learning. I thought it was fascinating. Brooklyn Jewish in the 40s was a very progressive and unusual hospital. That was at the time that Dr. Wiener and Dr. Wexler discovered how to do an RH exchange. Children that were born that were RH negative unfortunately did not survive because literally being of a different blood type than their mother, they were destroying the blood cells of each other. Dr. Winter Wexler figured out what we call an exsanguination. He would remove all the blood from the newborn, give them the compatible blood that their blood type was. So Brooklyn Jewish is where it was done. So we had the first treatment room in New York City, and all babies born with Rh negative were taken to our hospital. I love pediatrics, and I was very familiar with it. One of the advantages of being a good student was that your last 6 months, it was a 3-year course, was the opportunity to be on the service that you liked. I applied for pediatrics, and I was allowed to spend my last 6 months. Now, because of that, I had the opportunity to work in the treatment room, to work with these infants, and we're talking about new babies, and watch the examinations. Also, we had a famous pediatrician who was dealing with hydrocephalic. Those were the children that were born with the fluid in the brain, didn't have a proper outlet, so that their heads got larger and larger. And in those years, you had 12-bedded wards, and I remember seeing the children being brought in, and they were treated, and that was the start of the treatment that has been being done. And now, even to this day, which is shunting, they put a shunting to divert the extra fluid so these children can survive. Many interesting things happened at the hospital because it was so, it was really the hospital in Brooklyn. There was no question about it, and it had an unbelievable reputation. I had other experiences that I remember. A member of my family was going to have a bris, and nobody told them that I'd be the nurse to bring the baby down, and there was the whole family, and I brought the new baby down, and they did the bris there. They had a complete maternity wing, so brises were very common. Now, in those days, you stayed in the hospital for the week. You gave birth, they didn't get rid of you in 24, 48 hours like they do now. As a student nurse, and we were considered diploma nurses, when we graduated, we had to sit for New York State boards, which were given to any nursing student that graduated from a college program, a university program, and at that time you had one in Delphi, which was in Nassau, and you had some Catholic schools that had it. Otherwise, they were all hospital-based, Hunter had one too, based programs where they literally had slave labor, because you went to school and you went to work on the units. You spent 3 months on every service. You got an unbelievable education. And you spent 3 months on maternity. You spent 3 months on pediatrics. You 3 months on surgical unit, 3 months on medical units. And then you were farmed out for 3 months to a psych unit. Or at that time, you had an infection control unit. And I saw leprosy. I saw TB. I learned how to do the kitty packs. We even had to learn how to cup and bumpus and leaching. We were going from the old to the new and the different things that we were taught. When I left nursing, I went to work at a day camp for a little while. No, I forgot. I went down to Florida because I heard about Florida. And I figured out I'd be special. Get loads of money, take care of the patient at night, and during the day I could go to the beach and have a good time. So 4 of us came down to Florida, and that's just what we did. And I remember taking care of, I thought an old man, he probably was younger than I was. And I had to go to the local candy store and have Malters made for him because he was recovering. And he was a very nice person. His wife evidently liked me, and they were Canadians, and she said, how would you like to go on the train back to Canada with us and watch and take care of him? And I said, no, thank you. So she found a male nurse that was willing to do that. So I did do that after school. I also worked on pediatrics for a while. Then I met my husband. We got married in the day the Korean War started, June 25th, 1950, and I got a job as a camp nurse. My job was to line them up. This was in Manhattan Beach. and I would line them up, look in their throats, give them a quick over, and if I didn't like what their throat looked like, I sent them home. And the parents weren't very happy. But it was a good summer, and the kids did not spread anything because I got them out of there as quick as I could if I thought they were coming down with a cold. After I got married, we moved to Jamaica, and there I worked on pediatrics in Jamaica Hospital, which now is a big medical center also off Van Wyck. And there, I'll just share one experience with you to tell you what a reputation Brooklyn Jewish had. My husband was going to City College for his master's, and he was going in the evening. And I figured, gee, what am I going to do? He's going in the evening. So I decided I'd work the relief shift. At that time, it was either 8 to 4, 4 to 12, or 12 to 8. So I go into the director of nursing office, and I said, I'd like to work part-time. And she says, where would you like to work? And I said, pediatrics. And she says, fine, when would you like to start? I said, when can you use me? She said, tonight. I said, fine. Went home, got into my uniform, show up on the unit, and I go to the charge nurse because you take a report from the nurse that's leaving. And I said to her, who's working on the unit? She says, you're the charge nurse. I said, what do you mean I'm the charge nurse? I've never been in this hospital. I've never been on the unit. She said, I'm going home. Hands me the keys. Now, the keys are the narcotic keys, which you have to account for. You count them before the shift starts, and you count them when the shift is over. Well, I had no trouble, thank goodness. There was no emergencies, and I was very angry, though. The next day, I went to see the director, and I said to her, how could you do that to a nurse that you don't know anything about? I come off the street, and I tell you I want to work, and you put me in charge of a unit? And she says, you graduated to Brooklyn Jewish. You got very good marks on your state board. Isn't that something? Nowadays, if a new nurse comes on a unit, she has a mentor that works with her for 6 weeks, watches her give out medication, watches her care of the patient. It has changed dramatically. I did some pediatric nursing, and then I decided to start my family. And I said, what am I going to do? I'm pregnant. I don't want to be on a unit. And then I found out the American Red Cross had a course that nurses could take to become teachers of what they called home nursing. The war was over. There were a lot of people coming home. The hospitals were overcrowded, and that's when they were starting to cut down the stay of the individual in the hospital. And we were taught to be able to teach people how to change a bed with somebody in it, how to bathe them in bed, how to take their temperature, basic elementary care so the patients could be discharged sooner. This was a cooperation with the Red Cross and the United States Public Health wanted these courses. I found everybody wanted to learn how to do this. We learned how to make slippers out of paper. It was a fun course. I did that. I think I hit every sisterhood. I'm wrong. It wasn't sisterhoods. It was a ladies' auxiliary because the Jewish organizations, for some reason, didn't want to learn how to do this. But all the churches wanted you. And I went from church to church to church teaching these courses. And then I wanted to have something a little bit more interesting to do, so they said, well, how would you like to teach expectant parents? And I said, fine. So I then started courses where I taught the mothers and fathers-to-be how to take care of the newborn infant. We used dolls. I showed them how to bathe the baby and all the things that you should know what to do. We also taught, for the first time, a class for adopted parents, and we taught them and explained to them. Then I wanted to do something more, so I was approached by HIP. HIP was just in its infancy then, and that's the health insurance plan, which was very big in the metropolitan area and in Nassau County. And there they wanted me to teach expectant parent classes, but with an innovation. They wanted me to take the students to the hospital they were going to deliver in, and also introduce them to the pediatrician that was going to take care of their babies, which I liked. Then I got a call from somebody who said, how would you like to teach natural childbirth? And I liked a new challenge. So at that time, it was Dr. Reed. And I took a course on how to teach it. And I taught in several hospitals around the country. I went to, I say country, I mean metropolitan area. I then went to Maternity Center, who was the one who made all the literature, and they said, we understand you're teaching, but you don't have a certificate from us. I said, well, what do I have to do to get a certificate from you? Well, sit in some of our classes. So I sat in some of their classes, and then I became a certified maternity center teacher. At that time, LIJ, Long Island Jewish Hospital, was just being built. And most of the Jewish doctors from Brooklyn Jewish, because Brooklyn area, that area was declining, everybody was moving to the island, moved over there. And the next thing I know, I get a call from LIJ, would I teach natural childbirth at LIJ? And I did. And then they said, won't you come on staff? And I said, no, I won't. See, I'd much rather work at my time, do what I had to do, which was in the evening. So I did that at LIJ. Then I had my second daughter. And then I wanted to do something else again. So I was approached by, that was called the Vocational Board. And that was a Nassau County teaching department. And they had a school for practical nursing. And I taught there. And at that time, when I was teaching, I taught what they called theory and practical. I taught the theory in the classroom, and then I went to the practical part, which was taking the students actually on a unit. You were assigned 10 students, you picked the patient, and you supervised what they did, and you wanted to reinforce what they learned in the classroom. If the floor was very busy, you'd hide 2 students. And you say, how did you hide 2 students? You sent one to the OR, and you said, you don't do a thing except look. And then you sent another one to an intensive care unit, and you said, you don't do anything, you just look. And I was a terrible teacher. They were frightened to death of me. I was the old school. You had to shape up or you shape out. I had a reputation. If you wanted to fail them, send them to hell. Isn't that nice? Because I wouldn't tolerate any nonsense. So I did that for a while. And then I saw an ad in the New York Times that Brooklyn Jewish wanted an instructor. And I said to myself, to teach at my alma mater. Now at that time, it became the Interfaith Hospital. It was a completely different setup. It was working with, it was called Kingsborough College, and they were getting their associate degree because diploma nursing was completely being phased out. They wanted the nurse to be college educated, either with an associated degree or a regular bachelor. So I applied, and I was told it was for just one semester. I said, but I don't have the alphabet soup, because at that time, to teach in a school that had any type of degree program, you had to have your doctorate. And I hadn't even gotten my bachelor, because I graduated, was a registered nurse, and I didn't see the necessity to go on for further education. So she said, fine. And I loved it, and I did it for 6 months, just so I said I taught at my alma mater. Then I realized I better get a bachelor. And then I heard about Empire State College. Any of you familiar with that setup in New York State? So I said to myself, how am I going to get a degree? It's a college, it's part of the SUNY, it's part of the university system in New York State, but this was a very innovative, brand new concept. It was a college without walls, no classrooms. You worked with a mentor, and they gave you what they called life experience. So I was given life experience for being a nurse and teaching all those years, and I wanted more. So I said to them, well, what else can I get? So they said, well, what kind of experience you had? I said, well, I was very active in Hadassah. I ran the bulletin. I did fundraising. And you have to document all this. So I went to the region's office, and I spoke to people, and they documented that I did all this. And I said, I have had business experience. I've had the fundraising, and I picked up another year. And I still wanted more. So I said, isn't there something else I can do to get more credit. They said, yes, you can sit for a battery exam that come out of Princeton, and you get 3 credits for every subject if you pass. I said, well, what happens if I don't pass? I don't want it on my record. They'll only transfer what you passed. I said, fine. So I sat down and took this battery, 5 things, and I made another semester. So now I'm left with 6 months. And they said, well, you have to do something. I said, well, can't I submit a semester worth of lesson plans for anatomy and physiology? Yes, if you use the new terminology. They're big on that. So they give me a book about Bloom, and I have to put down performance objectives and this. To me, it was nonsense, but I wanted that degree. So I came up in front of their board because they couldn't understand how can they give somebody a bachelor who didn't do any formal classroom education in 6 months. So I said to them, you ask me any question you want. Education is based on the ability to be able to learn and produce. And I stumped them. And I got my bachelor in science from Empire State. I think after that they were much more stringent in the rules, the way they wrote it out. So I got my bachelor, and then I was approached by BOCES, which is the Board of Cooperative Education. And they asked me would I teach their practical nursing program both in the high school and in the adult program, which I did. I also taught what we call special pharmacology courses and also state board review. I wrote notes so I wouldn't forget anything, and I hope I'm not boring you because I'm going on and on. I was also told that I should tell you about what I do currently. I'm an advisor to Nassau region of Hadassah in what we have a health department. We run a very successful program where we go into the high schools and we teach the 12th graders breast self-exam. And we find it's very, very successful. We've been doing this. Now we go into the parochial schools, both the Jewish schools we have no problem getting into, but now the Catholic schools are letting us to come in. The program is for people. We have an individual who's experienced breast cancer. They speak about what it's like to have had breast cancer. We have a nurse in the program, and then we have a student representative, and then we have somebody explaining why Hadassah does this. We also run women's health forums. We do programs on osteoporosis prevention. Most people don't realize that Hadassah does all this. So as an advisor, I still get calls from New York now that I'm a snowbird, because I used to train the nurses to do this also. So you see that I like to keep my hand in. I still like to teach, and evidently you see I like to talk.
Before we go any further, is anybody pregnant? We have somebody here to take care of you. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask Judy concerning the nursing or things like that? Anyone?
Question. With nurse cadets, were they commissioned?
Pardon me?
The nurse cadets,
Yes.
were they commissioned officers?
No, we would
Because
be.
nurses were in the service.
Yes,
They were
but
all
there's a
commissioned
difference. I told you that this program was to ensure that they would have the future officers in the service. In other words, when we graduated, if the war had still been on, we then would be told that we need you, the Army needs you, the Navy needs you, and then we would automatically be commissioned as first lieutenants in the service. Pardon me?
officers.
Second lieutenant. I wasn't a lieutenant. I don't know.
Any other questions? All right, Judy, thank you very much for your speech.